Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of Talking Decon. We have a really exciting guest. His name is Fred Heyman, and Fred is one of the last few Holocaust survivors on the planet. I feel it's super important that we hear his story. All right. Hi, Fred. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we want to hear all about your story as a Holocaust survivor and how incredible that is. What can you tell me about your earliest memories?
My earliest memories are in 1932,
Okay. How old were you?
3 years young.
Okay.
You want to hear why, okay? I have to go back in history now. At the time, I did not understand what was coming off. But really what it was, in 1932, Adolf Hitler was entering the presidential election, okay? And they had an election. He was not elected.
Okay.
So the election committee decided to have a runoff election 1 week later. Hindenburg at that time made one radio address in Germany as a campaign speech. I hooked up all the radio stations in Germany together and gave one address. Adolf Hitler rented a small plane from Lufthansa, believe it or not, and made 21 campaign stops in 1 week. Put that into the United States. When we have an election at the end, when they have a runoff, the candidate goes to Pennsylvania and then to
Right.
Nevada or something like that.
Yeah, the swing states.
The deciding state. So that's what Hitler did. The second election comes off. Adolf Hitler was not elected in 1932. What I also must mention right now, after the First World War, Germany was a democratic republic,
Okay.
like we are. We had a constitution and all that, and everybody was free, whatever, okay? The advisor to our president Paul von Hindenburg, was re-elected. The advisor advised the president, if you want to control Hitler, point him to your cabinet, okay? And by the way, Hindenburg was like our President Eisenhower. He was a general in the military, and everybody loved Eisenhower, and everybody loved Hindenburg because he was a general in the military.
Right.
Okay. Anyhow, Hindenburg offered Hitler the vice chancellorship.
Okay.
And Hitler turned it down. He says he wants to be chancellor or nothing. Okay? So he became chancellor on January 30th, 1933.
Okay.
Chancellor. Now, a chancellor is not elected by the people. It's appointed by the president.
Right.
Yes, we had John Kerry and we had Hillary Clinton. They were all elected as senators.
Right.
But they were anybody could have been appointed that was not elected before, right? Now, every country, I mentioned those two names because every country got either a prime minister or chancellor. We don't have that position. We call it the Secretary of State. That was Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and whoever's there now. Anyhow, I remember that day, and the next day was the Hitler came to the Sports Palace in Berlin in front of thousands of Nazis. He gave his acceptance speech. Appointed people don't give an acceptance speech. I heard the speech on the radio. I didn't understand a word he was saying, okay?
Okay. And you were living in Germany at the time, right?
I was living the entire time in Berlin until 1946. The war ended in 1945, okay? So that's the beginning of my early history, what I remember. What I could not understand at that time, they had an election in Germany, the first election, and I didn't understand that who won and all any of that. Okay, and then you have a second
Right, right.
election, and my young mind said, "What are the grown-ups doing here? They have one election after another." Okay, I remember that part.
Right.
But anyhow,
Uh-huh.
that's my early recollection of anything back there. When I was
Okay.
probably still
Can you
in
tell me a
diapers
little bit about your
before.
family? Yeah, can
Say
you tell me a
again?
little bit about your family dynamics?
Yes, I can. Okay, my father was of Jewish faith. Now, my parents and I survived. Okay, my father was of Jewish faith, and after the First World War, he married my mom. And my mom came from an evangelical family. To
Okay.
please my father, she converted to Judaism. All right.
Okay.
Uh, the Nuremberg laws, which were passed in 1935, did not accept that. As far as they were concerned, she was an Aryan. An Aryan is not a race, okay?
Right.
But they okay. Uh, so she did not fall under the Nuremberg laws, other than she was treated as a regular citizen. All Jews lost their citizenship under the Nuremberg laws. We became
Okay. Now,
stateless.
how
Not my
how
mother.
okay. How
Okay.
quickly did things change for you and your family
Well,
and
it
all the
changed.
Jewish
It
people?
changed. Yeah, very good question. It changed in 1933. Hitler is appointed chancellor, and have you heard of a concentration camp,
Yes.
Dachau?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
Dachau was completed in Germany. Dachau is outside city Munich. Was completed in Germany on March 21, 1933. And
Okay.
it's all the Nazis did. I don't know where they found the money to do that, but Dachau was in place as a major prison, okay? And it had the crematorium and all that stuff. Uh, but not only that, in April, he was appointed, I said, January 30th, and on I'm trying to think back here now. On April 1, they started the official persecuting Jews. Jews were fired from any government job that they had. They were fired. Later on, Jews were dismissed with any actors and stars and comedians and all that. Uh, and they were extremely penalized for anything. Uh, you in business, they could not have sales, and had all kinds of things. The Nuremberg laws actually had, like, I don't know, 400, 600 anti-Semitic laws that Jews could not do. We got a curfew from sundown, from you know from sundown to sunrise. We could not leave the residence where we're living in. We lived in Berlin. If you want to leave, you had to get a special a special permission from the secret police called the Gestapo. Okay, we're not allowed to ride public transportation. Not allowed to go to movies. It's all in 1933. I was not allowed to have a bicycle. I lived within walking distance of the Berlin Zoo, which was beautiful. I was not allowed to go there. Uh, of course, I violated all that. Okay, but first we
Well,
didn't
let me
have a
ask you real
bicycle.
quick, Fred. Let me ask you a question. So,
Yeah,
when
but
these laws were coming down, how were you guys made aware? There was no internet at that time. Were you guys
no,
receiving
no,
it through
no.
TV or?
Yeah, that's correct. But those things all function. The laws certainly are printed in the papers,
Okay.
okay, and you probably get special notice because you're of Jewish faith, and you have to abide by these rules, okay.
Okay.
That's
Understood.
right. Now we got the internet and email, right?
Right. Wow. So, do you remember what your family was discussing when these laws were made apparent for the Jewish people?
Well, the Nazis did that. We did not realize To give you an example, my father served in the German military in the First World War, and so did Adolf Hitler on the Western Front. Um, my father keeps saying the Nazis would not come after us because he's a veteran. No, it did not count at all. All right, he found that out later at Rosenstrasse. Uh, for a while, we felt protected because my mother was not a Jew.
Right.
Under the Nuremberg laws, okay, and the reason for that, too many people even in government were married to Jewish spouses.
Okay.
Also in the military, okay. So Goebbels left that alone. Goebbels was the what they call the political leader for the city of Berlin. He left that totally alone. He violated, not if either I or my father um, had done something wrong. I'll give you an example. The World War II had broken out. It was September 1939. And in the building we lived in, there was a bakery. And everybody was drafted into the military, and not the non-Jews, not the Jews, the non-Jews, right? And my mom went to the bakery right in our building. It says, look, we need a helper to deliver torts and stuff to and cakes to restaurants. And my mother volunteered me. So now I had a bicycle, and I delivered these desserts, okay?
Right.
Guess what? It was a little trailer that I hooked onto the bicycle, and it had a shelf in there, and they had all kinds of stuff on there. What I liked the best was, you know what streusel is?
Yes.
When they got these, okay, I made sure, man, over many, many bumps so the streusel would drop off. So later on, okay. Unfortunately, one Sunday I made a delivery, and no, one Sunday I didn't make deliveries, but I had the bicycle, and I was riding the bicycle.
Yeah.
Okay, and I arrived in the midtown of Berlin, and there's a major intersection, and I come to a stop. There's a policeman, a traffic policeman, standing in the middle intersection, directing the traffic. So I had to make a left turn, and when he said, "Okay, I can come," and I started making a left turn. But also in those days, there were what we called streetcars, so really buses on rails, right? I made my turn, but I ignored the streetcar that was coming for me from the opposite direction, and I had an accident. I fell off my bike, and I got a scar up here. The cop comes over and balls me out. Called me a name. Schweino means you're a pig stalk. Okay, didn't you know that? Didn't you see the streetcars? I was bleeding. Okay, the policeman took the handkerchief out of his pocket and covered the wound. Walked me over to first aid station. They sewed it up. Now, under the Nuremberg laws, anytime the police had an encounter with a Jew, the Gestapo had to be notified. All right. 2 weeks later, we get a letter from the Gestapo that my parents and I have to come to Gestapo. The Gestapo headquarters, my mom did some fast talking.
Yeah.
This was 1939, okay, and did some fast talking. We got a stern warning.
Okay.
Don't ever do it again, because she explained the war had started, and the baker needed a helper, and my mother says we helped out the fatherland and volunteered me to make the delivery, okay? Any other time after that, I would have been in Auschwitz, okay?
Yeah.
Got a stern warning that sent me home. That was my initial encounter with the Gestapo. At Rosenstrasse, I had another encounter with Gestapo.
Well, let me ask you, Fred, how long after Hitler was appointed did he start taking Jews to the camps, and how were they selected?
All right, good question. Now, the first camp was open March 21. He was appointed January 30th.
Okay.
That's 2 months later, okay? Uh, so it was just a regular internment for criminals. Now, if any Jew have done something that, like even I ride a bicycle, you would be at that time. Probably, in this case, it gave me a stern warning. Okay, but had you done cross the street wrong, anything that could hang on you, you would end up in a concentration camp right then and there.
Ah,
The point I'm making here is that if you lived in Germany, my Holocaust lasted for 12 years, started in 1933, ended in 1945, when Adolf Hitler committed suicide.
okay.
All the rest of survivors, those that survived, uh, their Holocaust began on September 1, 1939, when Adolf Hitler marched into Poland and he went to France and Holland and all those. They had like 6 years of the Holocaust. I had 12. Not true. Not true with if you were born in Czechoslovakia, because Hitler annexed that in 1938. And also a little later, in 1938, he annexed Austria. If you were a Jew there, you would also end up in a concentration camp.
Well,
Before
and
World War.
Hitler's actually from Austria, right? He was actually born
That's
in
correct.
Austria, but yet
That's
he was
correct.
named a chancellor of Germany.
He was appointed chancellor.
Appointed a chancellor
Okay?
of Germany, yes.
He was not elected.
Right. Okay,
He
so
was elected officially by the Nazi Party in 1934. Paul von Hindenburg passed away in August of 1934 of natural causes. That's what it said, okay? And 2 weeks later, Germany had the Nazi Party came forward and had what they call a plebiscite. Plebiscite is they asked the voters, do you want Adolf Hitler as your leader, yes or no? No other candidate. The yes vote naturally got it, but the kicker is that 55% of German voters that could have voted did not go to the polls. And 45% that voted absolutely was always 99 dot something that was the yes vote.
Fred, do you
So
remember your family going into hiding?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And that happened right after Rosenstrasse. It kind of disappeared.
Okay.
All right. We get back to Rosenstrasse, but after Rosenstrasse, my father came back home, and the Allies did some horrific bombing in Berlin and throughout Germany. Our mail address went away. The Gestapo did not know where we were.
So where were you hiding, Fred?
Right in Berlin.
Right in Berlin. Okay.
And it's very simple. If you're in Tampa, and if you go to Naples or somewhere, nobody knows you. You can get away with it. Okay.
Right.
So they lost track of us.
Okay.
We were no longer registered. All right. So.
How were you guys eating? How were you living? How were you surviving?
Well, first of all, my mother was not impacted by the Nuremberg laws, and some food like farmers market, you could get your kraut and potatoes, that sort of thing. But she had a ration card for other stuff, so that's how we were eating.
Wow.
And then we had some good friends, and even within the family that helped us and survive food-wise.
Do you remember the first time that you saw someone killed in front of you?
Nearby, I said it was the end days in Berlin, and we were hiding in an underground area shelter. and the fighting was at a lull. And my father and father said, "Let's go outside and let's go back to where we used to live." That in a bombing was hit and was everything gone, but we had stuff in the basement in a wooden box. So maybe you could find some utensils like a knife and fork. We went over there, but it was all ashes. As we went from the underground air raid shelter, and we had to cross a river in Berlin. It was just 2 blocks away. As we're crossing the river, my father and I, to go to our building where we used to live, I heard a artillery thing coming over me with a whistling sound, and I threw myself down on the bridge. And my dad said, he says, "You don't have to do that because the one that hits you don't hear you. This one is already gone." But as we were crossing the bridge, I looked down on the it's a river there. Berlin has a river and has a canal. So we looked on the sidewalk along the canal, about a block away, looked down, I saw some people standing there, smoking, okay, and it hit there, and then all the people were laying on the ground. That's the first time I saw people dying.
Oh, I bet you were terrified.
No, I later on I saw bodies from the war in Berlin, walking around, that sort of thing. It brings me right back to what's going on in the Ukraine right now.
Yes.
Okay, and I feel for those people, and it's horrible. Right.
Yes, it is. Were you aware of other countries coming in to help?
Not really.
Okay.
Nobody helped. If anything else, hardly anybody. Good question. One country helped. There was China. China was occupied by the Japanese, and there was a guy ambassador or something in Shanghai, and he says, if I import Jews here, they have a smart brain, and it would be great for Shanghai. So people could go to China for a small time. That several people could escape to China, to Shanghai. They all survived. All right. The Dominican Republic did something similar. The ruler there says he brought in some Jews for a price. You had to pay a price for that. And there's a small community in the Dominican Republic, way south of Santo Domingo. It's a Jewish community, okay? Other than that, nobody accepted any Jews. The United States, the State Department issues the permit to come in, direct their feet. One incident was before the Second World War, where the people bought their own ticket and they could go to Cuba. Okay? Cuba would accept Jews. One ship was turned around called the SS St. Louis, which left Bremerhaven, I believe, in Germany, going to Cuba. Hitler got a hold of somebody in Cuba, an undersecretary, and says, turn that ship away to show that the world doesn't want to accept any Jews. Once the SS St. Louis was turned away, and the captain ran out of food, ran out of water, came to Fort Lauderdale in Florida, Roosevelt kept the ship out at bay, not in the harbor, surrounded by the Coast Guard. Nobody could get off. Relatives came over in rowboats, waved at the people on the boat, but the ship had to return to Europe and made one stop in England. Those survived. But then they went to France or someplace else, and Hitler got those Jews, and they ended up in a concentration camp.
Do you remember when your father was arrested?
That's the Rosenstrasse.
Okay.
That was on February 27, 1943. Um, it's a he was arrested on a Friday, I think, and the next day, it's a Saturday, and Mom says Dad is not coming home. There was a raid. In German, it's called an Aktion, okay? And so how do you know? It says I know. Apparently, one of her sisters have called her that sort of thing. And Jews are not supposed to have a phone, no radio, none of that, okay? Um, I remember my mom making a sandwich. I remember the sandwich that she made, a liver sausage sandwich. It's so good, but so bad for cholesterol, right? So, Mom, what are you doing? Says, well, where Dad is at, we're going to bring him some food, guaranteed he's not getting any food. So, how do you know where he is? She says, she knows. Well, we took the sandwich, that's on a Saturday, and uh, took the elevated train, they call it the city rail or something like that. They had a subway and a above elevated train throughout to this day in Berlin, and we went near to where my father was at, where my mother knew, and we got there. We got to the Rosenstrasse. A lot of women were there with their daughters and sons. Let's give us back our sons, our husbands, and our daughters, whatever. And a lot of other German women came out and says, "This is wrong what the governor is doing. These women left their husbands." And it's not right, okay? So that's the Rosenstrasse protest. I was traumatized by that incident. uh, I remember going there. I know it was a very cold day, but at the site something must have scared me. Later on I saw movies what happened there. What really happened there, it's a very small street where he was held at. It was a former uh, old age home, something like for old people type
Sure.
of thing. Uh, what the Gestapo in uniform is the SS. The SS came by and had machine gun stuff like that, was shooting in the air. It must have scared the living daylight out of me because everything goes blank at the side of the Rosenstrasse. Okay? Something I never knew what it was. Later on, we come home to our apartment building, and the building superintendent comes. There's a little passageway from going from the street to the building. Then there's a courtyard, and then there's a back building, and we lived in the back building. So we go to that passageway, and the building superintendent comes out. He lived right there in downstairs apartment. It says, Mrs. Heyman, while you were gone, the Gestapo was here to pick up your son. And Mom says, Fred, you got to go to bed. And Fred is the teenager's Mom, I'm not tired, okay? Shut up, you go to bed, and I have to go to bed. And if anybody says anything, tell them you're running a fever, you're sick. Mom, I'm not sick, shut up, okay? I'm sick. 20 minutes later, I'm in bed. I can remember everything clear as can be again. And I slept my parents' room on a sofa against the wall. My parents had a double bed in a bedroom. I slept on the side where my father slept. Okay. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, the two guys from the Gestapo look like New York City detectives in civilian clothing come in and want to pick me up. My mother must have been devastated. And she says, I'm running a temperature. I have some sort of a child disease. And two guys come in the bedroom. One takes his hand and puts it on my forehead. He says, this Jew is sick. We pick him up later. Okay. If you want a temperature, there's something is wrong. It could be the flu, okay? And the Gestapo had a rule on the book: if a Jew is sick, especially a temperature, you bring him to the Jewish hospital in Berlin. Don't put him on the train. You don't want to spread the disease, okay? Well, they left. All this, what I'm telling you now about the Jewish hospital, I knew about that, but I did not know that law was on the book. They left, and nobody ever came. So it was late afternoon when these guys came. We had come back from the Rosenstrasse. I'm sure that the guy that put his hand on my forehead was a superior over the other guy, okay?
Okay.
Either he was a good guy, he knew what was going to happen to me. If you
Right.
walk in, you never come out again, all right? You end up in Auschwitz. He did not report me because nobody came back. And in my timeline, I look at some of these incidents today, I swear that I'm getting some sort of protection. Is it an angel? Is it my mother? Or is it my God? This is, I need you now, do this. And I have become very passionate, talk about the Holocaust. I don't accept any money. Sometimes somebody gives me something, but I don't. I do all free because I wish to speak for those that can no longer speak for us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
So
thank you.
at what point did you leave Germany?
Uh, the war is over in 1945. The surrender is signed in May 1945. Adolf Hitler committed suicide on April 30th, 1945. We're now in the same underground bunker that was bombed out. I haven't described that scene yet. We were actually within walking distance from the bunker where Adolf Hitler committed suicide in the Vice Chancellery. Okay, did not know the Holocaust was over. Okay, anyhow, under the four-power agreement, it was agreed that when the war is over, Stalin would take half of Berlin. That would be his trophy, and Germany would be divided in two halves: the East Zone and the West Zone. And Berlin was divided. The other half was one was Stalin, the other half with the three other allies, the United States, French, and the British. We luckily, again, I do not know why, when the war was over, we started walking and walking until we could find some shelter. And we that later on became the American sector. The other three powers doesn't come into Berlin right away. It took several months, okay, but now we were in the American sector. My father went to the American embassy, military embassy in Berlin. We sat there from 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. Interrogated, total physical examination, and got this saying, well, we'll let you know. And then they let us know, sent us a telegram, says, yes, you're accepted on the Displaced Person Act, and you will get another telegram when you can leave Berlin. You get on a military train that will take you through East Germany, through Bremerhaven, okay? So that's what happened. My father made that effort, and they could have ended in the British sector or the French sector, but we walked, and again, we were guided somehow by higher sources. I got a
Yeah.
job for you, Fred.
So question for you, Fred. How long was your dad in prison? Was he there till
And
the war ended?
okay, he came home. What happened was when the women protest, they call it the factory action and the Frauen protest, okay? When an initiative, it was initiated by Joseph Goebbels, who was the Gauleiter, political leader for the city of Berlin, to give Adolf Hitler a birthday present. Adolf Hitler's birthday was on April 20th, I think, whatever it is, 1929. My birthday is on April 25. So he was going to give me a birthday present to make Berlin what they call Judenrein, free of all Jews. Jews were never free, okay?
Right.
So he arrested now, before that, mixed marriages were not touched because you're too ingrained in the families with Aryans. You
Right.
big shots,
Yep.
so forth. Okay. Well, Goebbels arrested her, but when he saw the protest by the women, and I call them all upstanders. All right.
Okay.
The other thing I want to throw in here, an upstander was not in the dictionary at that time. Every survivor complains about that where was the world helping us? We call them bystanders. What's going on in Ukraine right now? We're really not really helping them, okay? It came to the dictionary, and I heard it for the first time. I heard it for the first time, and finally got in the dictionary sometimes 10 years ago or so. I wish to be an upstander. An upstander is not going down the street with a sign and says, me too, blah, blah, blah. That's a protester. That's okay. Upstander is somebody that helps somebody else, okay? So I live on that. Anyhow, so we had a family, and a Catholic family that my father befriended initially. I'm still in touch with them, with their grandchildren, and we visit each other before the pandemic. And they're all upstanders. They helped us, all right? So anyhow, we going back to Rosenstrasse, I do not know exactly when the Goebbels released it. When all the women came out and protesting, give us back, whatever it is, 25 people in that building where they held were transported to Auschwitz. When Goebbels released everybody, the 25 came back from Auschwitz, brought back. Germans have to always be accurate, right? Dot the I at the right place, and it cross the T at the right place. Came back and probably survived the Holocaust, all right? So my father came home probably, well, not the next day, but a couple of days later.
Okay.
Never talked about what was going on inside.
You never heard the story from him?
Never. I pieced it all together later on, and he can talk. He was traumatized by that.
Yeah, I bet he
He
was.
loved Germany. He loved Germany.
Now, how long did it take you guys to get over to the United States?
Well, I said he went to the embassy, and we got a telegram. He says, when you get a telegram, be ready. So we got a telegram like on a Friday or something, and report to a train station on a Tuesday. Okay, and we got on the train, ended up in the DP camp in Bremerhaven or Bremen, someplace down there, and waited for a ship to come in to be boarded and come to the United States.
Yeah. How did you feel once you got to New York?
I loved it. Okay. We need to go back because you ought to need to talk about the liberation of Berlin, okay?
Yes.
You want to go back on that first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We were one Saturday in probably 1943. The Allies did horrific bombing of the city of Berlin called carpet bombing. Okay. The United States Air Force always bombed us in daytime, and the British bombed us at nighttime. All right. And they had such a thing called carpet bombing. A scout plane would fly ahead of the squadrons and go over to this corner, drop a parachute with a smoke bomb and smoking, and another one over there. That's where the line starts, and the planes would fly in like this to that line where they dropped the smoke signal and just drop the bombs. And they would take a tray of peas and just drop the peas. That's how the bombs came down. So it's a Saturday morning in arid sounds. My father had to work, mandatory labor, 6 days a week. He's at work, and my mom takes the subway, goes to a farmer's market to buy some stuff that's free like potatoes, okay? She's not home. My father is at work. Well, Jews were not allowed to be in a public area shelter, but I'm scared, and I don't wear the Star of David, we call it. I didn't wear my Star of David. Anything like that would have put me to Auschwitz had I been caught. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, I leave the apartment building. We lived on the upper floor, and leave the apartment building, go to this area shelter, which about a block and a half away across the canal, the river there, and go in there. It's a beautiful sunny day, blue skies, a bunch of guys standing there smoking. Okay, they asked, hey, buddy, I want the cigarettes. And no, I didn't want to get myself away, okay? So I stand by myself, and I look up in the sky. I see, all of a sudden, the sky gets dark. I see the bombers coming in. I see them in the sky. So I scream at the guy, says, guys, they're coming. Let's run down the basement, in the shelter. Running down the steps, the building started waving like this. The bombs were dropping. The building I was in, the public area shelter, was reinforced. And the thing to keep in mind, the Allies were humane in bombing. The fuses on the bomb had a time delay. So the bomb would drop down to, not a delay, actually shorten the time. The bomb would drop, would get down to like the second level, okay, and then explode. People underground are safe. But the building I'm in on the ground got hit three bombs simultaneously. And nobody got hurt, but all the stairways were now blocked off. We couldn't get out. The police president for the city of Berlin issued an order. All basements had to be connected to the next basement. If you have an apartment building in New York City or Tampa, they're like this, okay?
Right.
This building has 2 layers of brick, and this building 2 layers of bricks, okay? So the police president issued an order. You have to open it up and just seal that with 1 layer of bricks right here, so that people could knock it in. So when we couldn't get upstairs, so we kind of knocked it in, and about 8 o'clock at night, we found a stairway out, and everything outside was burning. I was flying burning cinders in the air. We ran in the subway just to get away from the smoke, okay? So that was my father, somebody in that shelter said, Fred, don't worry about it. Your dad will find you even when he comes home from work. Well, he found me late at night. There was one building left standing, an apartment building, all the windows blown out, but it was something to talk, and people made me a sandwich. I got something to eat. Okay, come on in here. And my father saw signs of living people, and that's how he found me. My mom, the air raid was on a Saturday. My mom never found me until Tuesday before we could come into the section of Berlin. Everything was burning and that sort of thing. So that was that incident. We were at Rosenstrasse.
Yeah, let's fast forward to when you got to New York. Where did you guys live? How did you know what to do? How did you get jobs?
All right. I came to New York in 1947. All right. And let me reconnect here. 1947 in January, we held a Jewish organization, fundraising organization that is still in existence today, gave us a shelter in a hotel, gave us 2 meals a day, and gave a one-time clothing allowance. And in January 1947, New York City was snowed in, believe it or not. They had no snowplows. The only thing running was the subway, okay? Yeah. Well, the same thing was true. Now we wanted to go to Milwaukee. We were interviewed by the committee, said, where do you want to go? My mom says Milwaukee.
Why did she say that, Fred?
Well, I'm glad you asked. In Berlin, when the war was over, now right where we found housing in the American sector. Across the street was a baker. And the baker says, look, the Americans are going to give me 1,000 kilo of flour, and I'm going to make so many breads, and I make half loaves. And by afternoon, every family can have a half loaf bread. So the women would line up early in the morning already to get the half loaf of bread. So my mother is on the line and talks to a Berliner, okay, not Jewish, it's just a civilian, and just chat around their experience, what they went through. Every woman practically was raped by the Russians, by the way, okay. Uh, whatever they're talking about, all right. So now comes this incident. We're going to be granted to come to the United States, and my mother talks to this woman and says, we're going to the United States. We are allowed to come immigrate to the United States. And this woman says, oh my God, they just got a new friend and that sort of thing. Now you're leaving me. But where you going? Well, the woman says, the woman doesn't ask me, but she says, when you're going, maybe you can visit my sister. She lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On a Saturday or Sunday, go and visit her. We're in New York, right? They don't understand Milwaukee, Wisconsin from New York. So naturally, when we're now interviewed by the Joint Distribution Committee, where would you like to go? And Mom says, well, how about Milwaukee? That's how we got to Milwaukee.
Wow.
Right? Milwaukee's a nice town.
Yes.
Very nice town. Yeah.
Okay. So you and your family moved to Milwaukee, and then where did you guys set up your work?
Well, before that, we're now in New York from January till May because there was a snowstorm in the Midwest, just as bad. Everybody snowed in, and meanwhile they're trying to find us housing in Milwaukee, temporary housing, so we can't go there. Okay, so I get all my peers my age at that point. They're Fred, did you sign up for the Catskills? What are the Catskills? There was a Jewish resorts type of thing. Well, I said, I can't. I mean, I don't think we're going to stay here. We're not going to stay in New York, okay? Meanwhile, I had no money. We would walk you've been to New York, right?
Yes.
We were on 103rd and Broadway.
Okay.
No, it's 102nd and Broadway, I think it is. At Hotel Marseille. It's still there today, all right? We were housed in there, and we would walk, 3 or 4 guys, walk from there to Times Square and back. We had no money, right?
That's a long way.
So, and we do what kids do, teenagers do. Say, hey, let's come to 76th Street, stay on the corner. We all stand there and look up. So why are we doing that? Well, that's the way we do it. All stand, look up. Everybody else stands and looks up. Okay. Everybody, all the pedestrians, what do you see up there? So we entertain ourselves that way. Okay?
Right.
Anyhow, meanwhile, all the others were now settled with relatives in the Bronx and wherever they're at, and I'm still there until May, and so I wanted money. So I said, why not get myself a job? And I walked into a job fair, probably in Manhattan, where on Theater Row, that area, the restaurants all downstairs, like 4 steps down, okay? I walked into a little sweatshop there. They make tie clips. It was a saber that stamped out of aluminum, and then they plated it brass and polished it, okay?
Yeah.
I made 30 cents an hour. Then started on a clip, and then put your tie under that clip. Made 30 cents an hour, all right? Then they offered overtime. So what is overtime? Well, you get a little bit more money. How much more money? Well, it's time and a half. What is time and a half? Well, you're making 30 cents now, you get 15 cents more. I want overtime.
Yeah.
The remaining months that I was in in city of New York, I made about $40 or $45 in overtime and regular money. Okay.
Wow.
Now comes the message. Next Tuesday, we have housing for you in Milwaukee, and you're leaving the hotel. Well,
Okay.
I found that out. I'm not. My parents know I'm working, but they don't know I have $45. I had money now. I walked from 102nd and Broadway to Times Square, 42nd Street. I could have the subway was a nickel.
Yeah.
I wouldn't spend the nickel.
Uh-huh.
Times Square was very honky-tonk, and they had all kinds of stuff in windows, binoculars, transistor radios, you name it, Swiss knives and whatever. I want to spend the $45. I bought my first used camera with the $45. I still got pictures I took with that camera. Okay.
Wow. That's awesome.
Okay, and then now we come to Milwaukee, and Mom says, Fred, you got to go back to school. Well, I found jobs because I wanted money. We had a when you got to Milwaukee, you got a studio apartment for a little while, and then they gave us a regular apartment that had a kitchen and bedrooms, whatever. So I had my own room. I had to pay my mom room and rent, room rent and food, whatever.
Yeah.
So I found a job and I gave her $15 a week.
Okay.
But now I found a job and I saved all the money. Okay, same thing happened with the camera happened here. I had different jobs. I worked for Nabisco, I worked for a lamp factory and that sort of thing.
At what point did you go into the war, Fred?
What?
At what point did you join the military?
That comes after this, okay?
After. Okay.
Okay, so I saved some money and I worked for a paint factory. I had to clean paint brushes from the painters used. Anyhow, I got money and paid my mother room and board. And walking home from the job, down the street was an indoor garage where people park cars from the neighborhood, okay? But they also had like a little mechanic shop in there with a wheel alignment and doing brakes, whatever. One day I walked by that, and on the sidewalk sit a beautiful blue 1934 Dodge. This is 1947, probably 1948, something like that.
Yeah.
I see a car, and wow, how much is it? $400. Well, $400 is not what it is today. So I come home, Mom, and I took driving lessons. I knew how to drive, okay? Yes, nothing should be go to waste. So I said, Mom, there's a beautiful blue Dodge out there, but it's $400. I said, don't worry, son. I give you the $100. That $15 I gave her, she saved for me to buy the car because I had $300, now I had $400.
That's amazing.
I was a king.
Oh.
I had wheels, okay?
Yeah.
Now, 1934 and 1948 is no really an old car anymore, right? But it had a radio. And for some reason, I had a need to roll down all my windows and turn on the volume and the bass wide open and drive down Wisconsin Avenue, the main street in Milwaukee, and play music because I felt the other people like to hear my music. I'm not any different, right?
Right.
Okay. But meanwhile, Mom said at that time also, Fred, you got to go back to school. And Fred says, Mom, I'm 18. Kids graduated. Here comes again. Shut up, you go to school. Wanted to enter high school. I could not enter high school, could not show evidence that I completed elementary school. I took 1 year 8th grade completion course for new Americans. Barely passed the course because I could not speak English.
Right.
It allowed me with probably a -C into the high school. Mom, how long? You need credits. Mom, what are credits? Mom, how many credits? Okay. So I took cooking, whatever it is, okay,
Yeah.
and right away I took my birth language, German 1 and German 2. All right,
Oh boy.
and German, and I read a book. The book name was Three Wise Men, Die drei weisen Männer. Okay, I understood the book. I flunked the course.
Ah.
I had to write what I learned from German 1 in English.
Right.
I flunked the course, okay? And every immigrant that comes in somewhat goes through that, okay? Anyhow, I'm now in high school. At that time already, the law was in effect called the Selected Service Commission. It's still there, all right? I'm now at 19 because I'm 1 year 8th grade completion course. I'm drafted out of high school. Notice in the United States for 5 years, right? Drafted out of high school, end up in Fort Sheridan, Illinois, being inducted into military service, and they shipped me to Camp Polk, Florida. And I ended up in the 45th Infantry Division, one of the divisions under Eisenhower, liberated Dachau, and I feel proud of it that I served with them, okay?
Yes.
But I'm now in the line company. I'm the new kid on the block, the greenhorn, what they call me, right? And I'm in a platoon, Company C, 3rd Platoon. Every platoon has one machine gunner. Let's give the greenhorn that machine gun. It's a 30 caliber machine gun, and I had a challenge with that. When you go on a forced march means running.
Right.
Running with that machine gun was a little bit hard on me. I
Oh yeah.
went to my company commander and said, "Sir, I don't belong here." And I knew the answer he's going to give me, okay? He says, "Yeah, you belong here." But I explained him further and says, "Look, we got American U.S. occupation forces in Germany. I could be a help to our country, translating blah, blah, blah. No,
Right.
you belong here." So I go back to the company, but again, a higher authority looked out for me. About maybe 2 weeks later, I end up a transfer. It's still in the same outfit, and transferred to regimental headquarters. And regimental headquarters now has a radio truck with Morse code with 2 or 3 operators in there. They go right about 2 or 3 miles behind the front line and relay the ground troops asking for help, artillery support back to the regiment so they can do the bombing there, okay? Sometimes I had to go from the radio truck right to the front hall and spend the night in the foxhole with guys out there, right on the front line, Porkchop Hill, right? While I'm alive, I do not understand. It's a higher authority that, "Fred, you're not done, okay?" Anytime a sound like this comes along, yes, I want to do this. It's so
Right.
important because what's going on, it's still just as bad. It's not the Holocaust, but it's genocide. Okay, so
Right. Right.
I survived that, and I lost my wife in 2004. I think I shared with you about the phone call from Ed Bendel. I didn't know who he was. I'm still doing it. I'm still getting twins, and I last week I went to a Catholic school here in Morristown, and at 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the auditorium, I got a standing ovation, and Sister Larkin wants me back for a classroom presentation. So I'm very active. I have uh, over 55,000 people heard my presentation. You right now hear mine, okay? Uh,
Fred, can you tell me about the twin
I feel
program?
rewarded. I feel rewarded. I'm healthy, and I feel rewarded if a small percentage of the 55,000 I changed their life, and my thing is be an upstander, not a bystander. Okay, uh, that makes the world better. Um, um, I feel rewarded that some people are convinced to become upstanders. All my twins are practically upstanders. They're doing wonderful things. Um, and the other thing that pleases me is that I'm in excellent health. On April 25th, I'm going to be 39 years young. Just to reverse the numbers. 39, okay? Uh, uh, all my
Yeah.
all my peers um, have a handful of pills going to bed or yeah for breakfast. I take a baby 81 milligram aspirin, and I take the generic of Lipitor, which is a blood thinner because I had open heart surgery. That's all I take. I do right now. I have, excuse me, 8,478 steps on my Fitbit. Before I go to bed, will be 20,000, and that makes my heart good. Okay.
Nice.
Um, So I feel blessed. And I'm not joking about it. I'm not religious. I really should go back in the synagogue on the Friday night service and say, thank you. Dear God, I say thank you every night. Say, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. The story must be told. People do not understand the story.
I agree.
But, but,
I agree.
my cell phone is not. If I go in the classroom, it says, anybody got a smartphone? All the hands go up, okay? I explain these kids. Kids understand it.
Mm.
My significant other, I'm not remarried, my significant other, we live together, says, when I say that, she says, oh, that's all nonsense, all that. Grown-ups don't understand it, okay? I says, on your smartphone, you have apps, APPS, apps. You knew what that is? Yeah, okay. One
Right.
app you're not allowed to put on. What is that? It's spelled HATE. And don't pronounce it. If you pronounce it, you must say, got to be careful now. Okay, Google, boop, 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 boop. What can I do for you? Okay, when you pronounce it, it becomes an application. Now, take an application like smoking. Every time you light another cigarette, you reinforce the habit. Every time you pronounce the HATE, you must say delete, erase out loud. To this thing up here, uh, it's not what it is. You do not have to like our president. You do not have to like broccoli, okay? But you're not allowed to say HAT broccoli. That goes over with every kid out there. They understand it. They so quickly say HAT this and that, okay? That I hope will change the world. I do that constantly. One of my twins made me a little card called "Be an upstander, not a bystander," and I'm very comfortable and I'm very healthy. And my God says, Fred, you're not done. I let you alone. I saved you actually. Okay, and I say in my religion you got a very sacred prayer called the Shema, and I say my Shema Yisrael every night. It's God, oh Lord, our God, and I say that every night before I go to sleep. And I thank my God for saving me. So I'll do whatever you want me to do. Okay, and I love what I'm doing right now because that will now go someplace else. Didn't hear you.
Fred, what is it that you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for being upstander, but what an upstander is, and I hopefully, okay, Let me tell you about Sister Rose Thering. Mark it down. Thering, Thering. Uh, After I started twinning, I became active on the Holocaust Council, and everybody talked there about Sister Rose Thering. She lived right next to the JCC here in Whippany, New Jersey, and everybody adored her. She is a Catholic. She passed away. She's a Catholic. She's a nun that changed the Catholic religion. Okay, and if you look up Sister Rose Passion, there's a documentary that we made in Whippany, New Jersey on Sister Rose. You may want to look at it, okay? She always wore molded together a cross and the Star of David, always wore that, okay? Um, I know her personally. I've been up to her a couple of times to introduce myself. Said, Sister Rose, you don't know me. And she was very feisty. I know you, just like that. But she was appointed to the Holocaust Commission from the state of New Jersey. In the state of New Jersey, she was instrumental that every school in New Jersey, from lower grade to upper grades, has to have the Holocaust on the on their agenda, on their school plan. Okay, so she's known for that. She went to St. Louis for higher education, and she was a rebel rouser. She wrote a thesis. The principal there in St. Louis called the Archbishop, says, we got a nun here. She's causing us trouble. The Archbishop called Sister Rose in. He says, look, I know what you're doing, sister, but we do not hang our dirty linen on a line. She says, yeah, but I'm going to hang it. She's an upstander. She changed the Catholic religion. The last thing that was voted on at the Ecumenical Council at the Vatican in 1962 passed what the North Star AETA. It's a Latin word. It says you can no longer, the Catholic religion can no longer claim who killed Jesus, like they claim it. And then that was passed, okay? Interestingly, the 2 weeks ago when I was talking to a Catholic school here in Morristown, I said I want to bring up Sister Rose Thering. I got some resistance. The sister doesn't want you to talk about it. But I even got an award. They got a Sister Rose Award for 2021 on Holocaust education. So I want to, but she did it. No, we did not. So when I got to the school, I met Sister Larkin. Her first name is Meryl. Says, Meryl, here's the story about Sister Rose. And she knew exactly this story. She's one of these things that grew up before North Star was passed. And even though it's now taken out of the Catholic textbooks, okay, she doesn't want to go with it. She doesn't want to deal with it. That's fine, okay. She did let me talk, and she let me come back, okay. So that again, my message is getting out there. We're all human beings. What's going on is just horrible, right? So I hope I answer everything.
You did. You did. I have one final question for you, Fred. Everything that's going on in Ukraine right now with President Putin, do you see any similarities between President Putin and Adolf Hitler?
Okay, absolutely. It's not a Holocaust. Leave that alone. Sometimes politicians refer to things like Holocaust. Holocaust is standalone. People were burned, okay? No, the Holocaust also was a genocide. What Putin is doing is a genocide. He's willfully attacking civilians. He shot in rockets to a train station where people fleeing Ukraine. And the rockets are marked, this is for the children. And then Putin blames, says the Ukrainians shot the rockets. They didn't shoot the rockets, okay? Absolutely.
Right.
Putin is dangerous, very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a very sad thing going on with the Ukrainian people.
Horrible, horrible.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Fred, for taking the time to tell us your story. I find it totally necessary because
Thank you. Okay, the
I don't
story
want it
must
to
be
be
told.
forgotten.
And the only way, as far as I'm concerned, is to be told on the HATE, because I
Yes.
felt HATE under Adolf Hitler for 12 years.
Right.
Ukrainians got HATE right now under Putin.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct. Okay.
so that sells,
I'll do the
and
outro afterwards.
you cannot
So you can cut this.
deal with that any other way. I had people here in this room, a mother with one of my twins. When I described about things what was going on in Berlin, she knew my mother was not Jewish. She converted Judaism as our count. She asked, "What did my mother do when Hitler did that?" You keep your mouth shut, okay? Okay, absolutely. And I'm hopefully I be allowed to do this for a long time, because
Yeah.
I talk to people now about left and right.
Truly.
If you have a name tag, I read the name tag and I say, "Your name is Laura? My name is
Yes.
Fred. Nice meeting you. Thank you for helping me." Right?
That's awesome.
Thank you,
That's
Laura.
awesome. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed Fred's story. I thought it was absolutely captivating. And you know, what's really intriguing to me about this is that Fred is 94 years old. His population is almost all gone. I think it's super important that we never forget the history of the Holocaust and what happened to the Jewish people and a lot of other minorities as well. It's really important that we keep that story going, because Fred won't be around forever and neither will his counterparts. So I hope you really got a lot of information out of this. I learned a ton. So thanks again for joining us for Talking Decon. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. Have a great day.